everyone. Welcome to another KE Report webinar. I'm your host, Corey Fleck. This webinar is being produced in conjunction with Focus Communications. And on this webinar, we are featuring Trigon Metals. Trigon is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol TM and on the OTC markets under the symbol PNTZF. I am chatting with the CEO, Jed Richardson. Now, to bring everybody up to speed, I've had Trigon on my show, KE Report, a couple times to introduce this relatively newer copper production company focused at the Kombat mine in Namibia. Company also holds the Silver Hill project in Morocco. Now, throughout this webinar, I will be interjecting some of the questions that all of you ask. Please use the chat feature or the Q&A feature within this webinar. I will be monitoring those throughout, and I will interject on certain slides when Jed is presenting to get your questions answered. If at any time while you're watching the replay of this, you can email me, fleck@kereport.com, and I'll follow up with Jed to get some more information on the company and follow along as some more news is released. Now, Jed, thank you very much for taking some time with us. Everybody, thank you for tuning in live to this webinar. Jed, please take us away introducing Trigon Metals to our audience, please.
Thanks, Corey. I'm going to run through the presentation here and just talk about the company and where we are in our development. I'll start right here with the cover. This here is a picture of our very first concentrates being shipped. This was taken actually early March as we were sending our first concentrates to Port Walfish Bay, and that's the Kombat mine in Namibia. Forward-looking statements. I'm going to talk a little bit about copper here, and I think it's often in these presentations we skip over the macro, but in the current turmoil in the market, I think it's everybody needs to remember that that we're in a special phase right now for copper, as we're seeing more and more copper demand for electric vehicles, for increased hydroelectric power that's needed around the world, as we're now powering not only our lights and computing. We're now powering our transportation. But what we like to focus in on really is the supply side. Now, copper has for years, for the last 30 years, really been dominated by production out of Chile and Peru, and we see that changing as those mines are now at the end of their lives and are mining lower and lower grade, and now we're actually seeing in a lot of these Latin American countries governments that are anti-mining, and I think over the next few years, as the world needs more and more copper, we're going to need production to come from Africa, and where we are focused at Trigon is really it's African production, but some really high quality jurisdictions. The country of Namibia, not on that list because we're actually starting the first new copper production in that country for about five years, and but it's a country with a lot of history in mining. Big uranium producer, big gold producer with B2 Gold, and big diamond producer, and also base metals like lead and zinc. And now Trigon is emerging as a copper producer there, but it does have a strong history, and we'll talk a bit about that in the history of the Kombat mine. And then also in Morocco, we're looking. Morocco, I think, is underknown as a as a quality jurisdiction. It's got a strong mining history. The world's largest phosphate producer, has a lot of base metal potential, but has yet to be discovered. I think they're kind of spoiled by their riches in phosphate, and we're already seeing in our Silver Hill project a copper silver project that has the potential to be world class.
So, Jed, just one quick question that's already come in, dealing with major producers in Namibia. You already talked about a few of them. Have there been many new mines that have come online recently?
Really, we're one of the first coming online now. We are seeing some new graphite production that started around the same time period. There's a lot of new interest around uranium, but they've yet to start those operations. I guess the most notable new production would have been over the past 6 years. B2 Gold's operation there. They're about 150 kilometers south of us, and they have one of their largest operations in Namibia. It's a very well-established mining jurisdiction.
So as you brought this online, did you have any issues with getting permits, getting environmental approvals, anything on the government front?
The government's been really helpful. So no, we got our permits as we needed them. Environmental permits and permissions were all granted on time. What we did is early last year, I actually moved to Namibia with my family, just temporarily for about 4 months. But in that time period, we were able to get our mining permits, our environmental permits. We actually had to do an electric power deal. We did that as well, and really established everything for the restart of the mine. One of the things is coming out of the kind of coming into a new cycle for really not just copper, but metals in general, and getting started early. We were able to find a lot of high quality personnel. So I think we've got a bit of a dream team of operators, really at all levels, from our mining and mill managers right down through HR. A lot of experience, a lot of know-how that we were able to glean from some of the other operations around the country.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
So just to situate you, Namibia, this is the southern part of Africa, on the west coast. It's a desert country. I always like to say it's about this. The country is about the same size as France, but has a population that's smaller than Toronto. So there's less than just over 2 million people in the country of Namibia. And why that's actually important is there's a lot, because there is a lot of mining there, and you've got a small population. Everyone is touched by mining in some way, like they've got a relative or a friend who works in mining. So you don't have a lot of the pushback that you get in other countries where the general population might be ignorant to the fact of how much mining can contribute to a country, and that's part of why permitting and things like that are so much easier in a country like Namibia. So we're here at the Kombat mine, and we take our material out through Wallfish Bay, the port.
Okay.
The key thing, and I think if you take away anything about Trigon, this is really a story about growth. We have started our production at the Kombat mine from our open pit. We are forecasting 8 million pounds of production over the next 12 months, but that's really just the first step. We from the open pit, we'll be running about 1,000 tons per day of ore going through our mill, and we should and that's coming from an open pit that's averaging around 1% copper. We'll get into our underground in 2024, and there our grade goes up to 2.6% copper, and our production goes from that 8 million pounds up to 30 million pounds. And along with that, with the increased grade and higher throughputs, our operating costs should come down. So we're anticipating operating costs once we get underground of around $2 a pound. And so even in the current copper price, that's going to be a very profitable operation. And then we have a third stage of growth that we really only just started to discuss with our shareholders, and this is from an area called Asses Far West, and that sees another step up in grade, another mill expansion, and that has the potential to get us up to 65-70 million pounds of copper annually, all from just the Kombat asset. So from one asset, we can really establish ourselves as a mid-tier copper producer.
Okay, so then there's growth coming organically here. Can you share with us what your all-in cost for production is right now? We understand that it sounds like improve, but where do you stand currently?
So what we're a higher cost operation right now. We are still profitable at the current copper prices. Just like a couple of weeks ago, we were around $3.50. The copper prices come off, but so has oil prices. With oil down, we're closer to $3.25 right now. Oil contributes to our operating costs as far as moving trucks and equipment around the pit, but it also contributes to our explosives costs. The ammonium nitrate fuel oil explosives we use are heavily impacted by oil prices, and with those coming off, it's brought our operating costs down. If we can get back down to more regular prices of oil, we should be around $3 all-in costs.
Okay, so the change in copper price, we all have seen copper drop. This isn't changing your future production plans then?
No. One, we do see this as temporary. We don't think things have changed in the copper market. There's still a very short supply as far as concentrate, where we find ourselves called regularly by off-takers looking for concentrates. And then the other is we're still profitable at these levels.
Okay, yeah, that's a key determinant. I assume we'll talk about some of the more underground mining in the future. So continue on then, please.
Sure. So last week we put out an operational update just talking about the amount of tons that we've mined, the amount of ore that we put in, where we are stripping ratio right now. We're about 6-to-1 strip, and we should actually that should come down over the next few months. We've now produced about 860 tons of concentrate, grading just about 20% copper and 271 grams per ton of silver, and we still have some concentrate to ship. In the press release, we talked about the challenges that we faced, both in working capital, but also in feeding the mill with high quality ore. And at that, just last week when we were discussing this, we were talking about it largely being oxide at the surface at the beginning levels of production. I can share with those of you on the call now. We are mining sulfides as of yesterday morning. So we should see our recoveries go up, our costs come in line, and production levels increase all over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, that actually ties in nicely to a question that just came in First of all, asking what the reserve is in pounds, but also follow up the geologic setting of this deposit. Can you give us a little bit more information, especially on that second point?
Yes. So I'm gonna. I like this. This is it has a conversation. This works a lot better. So I'm gonna jump first and talk about the resource.
Okay,
so we're sitting at we have about 12 years of mine life. We operate from the open pit. 4 years of mining, 6 years of ore through the mill from the open pit. But this is really an underground mine. It was an underground mine operated as such for over 45 years. And we have about 12 years of mine life with the existing resource. And I'll just touch on this. Hopefully you guys can see that on your screens, but showing you the open pit grade. So this is the open pit resource, 5 million tons at about 1% copper. And then as we get into the underground, and notice I'm only pointing to the indicated resources. So 7 million pounds at 2.6% copper. You'll notice the silver. We also highlight lead on our resource table. We at current are only producing a copper concentrate, and that's because from time to time, what we to get maximum recovery on the copper, we do suppress the flotation of the lead. From time to time, if we're in a section where there is a lot of lead, we will produce a lead concentrate intermittently. So you can look to that to sometimes be a byproduct, but as far as our forecasting, we do not include it as a byproduct.
Is there any changes to the plant that needs to be done when you're producing those byproducts?
No, we have a lot of spare capacity as far as flotation. So it'll just be the reprocessing. It'll be a reorganization of the flow of ore through the plant. So lead can flow relatively easily. So we'll float the lead first, and then float the copper after. There's no big reorg that's needed to do so. I also wanted to touch on, as far as byproduct credits, when you're looking at those operating costs, we do not include lead as a byproduct credit. And in fact, for silver, we only include 10% of the value, and that's because we're anticipating selling a silver stream for the silver, so it's not in those operating costs. But we're getting to the question that you got. So yeah, let's talk about the geologic setting. So this cartoon, sorry, I'm tracing on my screen and realizing you can't see it.
Here, I can fire up that whiteboard for you. There you go. You can continue to trace if you want.
Yeah, okay, let's see if I can do this. I just told you I wouldn't do it, and here I am.
Let's give it a shot. It's nice to see sometimes.
All right, just this slide here. This gives you a bit of an idea of the geologic setting. Really, this is like a roll front copper deposit that's hit a shear structure and deposited. But the predominant geology, what you'll see, sorry, I have to talk with my hands. There might be some Italian heritage here, but there's is a big syncline. So a syncline is a fold in the Earth's crust. The outside of the fold, where the X is, that is dolomite. Dolomite is it's a blaxploitation movie from the 70s, but it's also a really hard limestone-based rock. And then the inside of that fold is phyllite, which is like a clay shale type mineral. All of the mineralization, or the majority of the mineralization we see, is in the dolomite, and the fold seems to have created a trap for the mineralized fluids that are moving through this area. So you'll see it's a big shear structure that intersects this fold that creates the trap for the mineralization. If you're looking for a name for it, people do use Cooperschiefen, and you may have heard that a time, but it's that which kind of points to that roll front copper type mineralization. But the trap that we have here is, I'd say, is pretty unique. Another thing, and why the fact that the mineralizations in the dolomite is really, really important. Dolomite is, like I said, a very competent, strong rock. So in the 45-year mine history of Kombat mine, there's virtually no use of rock bolts. The rock holds itself up. So as we restart the underground, we're not expecting many challenges. This is really just pumping the water out and getting back into work. So it's a fantastic rock to be working in.
Okay, let's also use this map. And can you show us where some of the most recent high grade hits have come from? If you could annotate that on that map just to give us a better understanding.
Sure.
Thanks.
Trying to wipe my screen. Clear. Okay, so I'll actually check back a couple slides.
Sure.
And so this is our central pit where we've been doing the bulk of our mining. Sorry, I'm circling.
No, that's
it
okay.
again.
I'm just turning on the whiteboard
yeah.
here. If you could just draw where it is.
So yeah.
Or just explain it, whichever one's easiest for you.
So yeah, here is the central pit. So this is where all of our mining has really taken place to date. And you'll see marked on this chart some of the high grade hits that have been like extensions to that central pit plan. And you can see here GTB10. So we've got it matched up on the side there. So yeah, 3 meters of 1.36, 13 had 4 meters of 1.72 and 2 meters of 3.3. And then this BH here was 2 meters of 1.3. So these were in and around extending the central pit. Where we're really going to grow the resource, though, will be in the East 900 on the other side of that chart, and we're seeing some good hits in that area, and they're kind of highlighted on the slides there. But most interesting to you guys online right now is in our press release last week, we discussed the Kavango pit, which is actually a parallel structure to the central pit that we've opened up and we've started mining from just over the last 3 weeks. There we should have some new results to discuss with you over the next week or two. And this is directly south of the central pit, and we're looking at a trend there that we think could extend and link up with the trend that we're seeing in East 900.
Now, why did you bring that pit online then? Was it just kind of low-hanging fruit, more or less?
What we've been learning really is that grade control is taking a lot more work than we initially anticipated, right? Just controlling the quality of the ore that's going into the mill. So opening up a second phase has allowed us to take more time to sample and test what we've got in the central pit. And then in the Kavango pit, what we're also seeing is the mineralization is blockier. so we're not getting the same kind of variability that we've seen in the central pit, and it allows us to mine more and mine faster. So it's something that we've incorporated into the plan so that we can we can get the mine operating up to the capacity that the mill has.
Okay. Now, how quickly do you think you'll be able to get that mine up to capacity? What are the steps here? And that'll tie us into some underground questions, but let's talk that first.
Sure. I think this step at Kavango is really the linchpin. What we've done a lot of work on the mill, like you were just talking about the flow sheet and being flexible. So what we did earlier this year was install that extra flotation capacity. It makes the mill much more flexible. It helped us with throughput as well. We can use longer residence times in the flotation cells because we have the additional capacity, and we can maximize our recoveries that way. But the pinch point had been the mine that we were it was taking more work managing the grade. Our benches were smaller so that we could control the dilution. Having this new pit that we can operate from, I think is gonna be the turning point in really getting this to operate at full capacity.
Okay. Look, there are a lot of questions on this underground aspect, so let's just address those right now. First and foremost, what
Sure.
underground mining technique will you be using, and any challenges to the metallurgy?
So it's cut and fill, meaning your jack legs overhead, you stand on your ore and then scoop out from underneath. This is a tried and tested mining method. We're not doing anything particularly groundbreaking on that front. Sorry, what was the second?
Challenges to metallurgy.
Oh, metallurgy. Yeah, no. In fact, our metallurgy gets simpler as we get underground. It'll be 100% sulfides underground. Like I said, and I didn't probably belabor this, but there's a 45-year mining history here. This mine has been is well known, and getting it through its life, there's always been high recoveries from the sulfide ore. So no challenges to the metallurgy. And even from the open pit, as we get to more sulfide ore, like we have just over the last day, it'll make our metallurgy easier, and our recovery should go up.
Okay, perfect. Now, how about financing of the underground portion? Insights on what that CapEx is going to be and how you're going to finance that.
Yeah. So we've done internal numbers so far. There is a PEA level study that was done in 2019, but we've done internal numbers, and we're looking for the restart of the underground to cost us about $25 million US, and we're working on a silver streaming deal that we should be able to announce in the near term, that pays for that. So what is for the reestablishment of the underground? The CapEx is going to include, I'd say, like 3 major portions. The new pumps, so pumps to pump the water out from the underground, an expansion of the mill. So we're going from 1,000 tons per day to 2,000 tons per day. Notably, we actually have spare capacity in everything that we've updated in the mill. So in our flotation, in our filter presses, even our primary crusher. So that expansion is really just the grinding. And then rolling equipment. So this is currently we're mining from the open pit, and we're mining the open pits between shaft 1 and shaft 3. And we're using contract mining for open pit. We've really had a really good experience with the contract mining there. But to get underground, we have to go to an owned fleet. For underground mining, there's a lot of skills that are built up as an underground miner, and you don't want to have all those skills built in a contractor where those miners could end up leaving or being put on another project. So a big part of our capex of that 25 million is actually like scoop trams, drills, everything that we need for underground mining.
Okay, so big equipment. Now, has there already been a management decision about starting the work for this underground mine? It does sound like you guys are progressing forward with that.
Oh yeah. No, there's no hesitation there. That getting underground has always been the goal here.
Okay. Now this mill that's already in place sounds like it's fairly large. I haven't seen it, but is there a general value that you can put on just the mill by itself, including some of the updates you guys have done?
Sure. There's I can tell you that the scrap value of the mill, if we were just to sell it for the metal, would probably be close to $11 million. The mill itself, as far as infrastructure, I think that's just a broader term. Looking at who we are and what we've got at Kombat, the infrastructure in place is multiple times our market capitalization. On the diagram we're looking at on the left side of the page, you'll see the Assis Far West shaft. That is a 750 meter, 2,000 ton per day production shaft that was built and has yet to be operated from. That shaft, when it was constructed, cost about $90 million. To do it now would probably cost me maybe could be almost double that, but definitely in excess of 150. The mill, a lot of the capital costs to establish a mill is actually just in the concrete, just your foundation. Having that already in place and having that built and being oversized for us has been a huge advantage, and really reduce the costs to get this asset back into production.
Okay. Another question, or a couple questions have come in regarding the silver stream and how it's tied, I believe, to Eric Sprott. Can you take us through that relationship, how much Sprott owns, what this silver stream could be all about?
Sure. So the silver stream, so first, Eric Sprott is our largest shareholder, with just about 20% of the outstanding shares. He's also been a very strong supporter, and his daughter Larissa Sprott sits on our board. The silver stream, or Eric's involvement in the silver stream, was in the form of like a cash advance, a loan facility that we received from Eric of 2.5 million US. That will convert into a portion of the silver stream. That'll be all that Eric has as far as the silver stream. The stream, when we announce, will actually be with a third party, and it and Eric's portion will account for less than 10% of that stream. So it'll like I said, it should give us all the capital we need to fund our $25 million expenditure for the underground mining. But yeah, it's been a good relationship with Eric. He's been, well, he's always a great shareholder, but a great supporter. Interesting to you, probably to our investors, is Eric's interest is more so in our work in Morocco. Interestingly, the cash flow and production at Kombat has really been a bonus. Really, it's Morocco that got Eric first interested in Trigon.
Okay. Before we go over to Morocco, a couple questions have come in about water. Any water issues since this is in the desert?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So Namibia is a desert country, but this is a mine with a lot of water, and water has been an issue in the mine's past, where it's actually flooded because of like power outages in the past. And I highlighted that one of the key components in the capex was new pumps. So historically, the way that this mine was drained or kept dry was staged pumping, and this is pumps that were installed in the 1960s, where you'd have a pump sitting underground at the base of the mine. It would pump up to intermediate level, pump up to another intermediate level, and then finally a third pump would take it and pump it out of the mine. And this system is what it contributed to some of the problems with water in the past, because you'd literally have one of the pumps either fail, or it would get submerged, and you couldn't, your system wasn't working as well. There's no need to do that in 2022. So what we'll be installing is single pumps that take the water right from the base of the mine all the way out of the mine, and not having that staged level of pumping is gonna give us a much more robust system.
Okay.
Sorry, there was another piece to that about water. Oh yeah. Also, being in a desert country, though, water should never be a problem. It should be an opportunity. So water has been a key part of our communication, our, what do you call it, ESG, our social responsibility efforts with the community. We are using our water for a community garden that really, it pays for itself, but also provides a bit of a food dividend to the local community, and employs about 80 people. And then we also provide all the water for the town. The water that we pump from the mine is potable water, so we provide water to Kombat community and the neighboring community called gosh, the name just slipped me, but yeah, we and some of the local farmers.
Okay, thanks. How about electric power? Enough for even the build out when you do get underground?
Yes, we're on grid power, and there's sufficient power to run the mill, to run the pumps, for everything we need. We do have we are installing backup power. So we'll have diesel gen sets on site for backup power. Namibia has had very stable power, so that's not been the issue. But you when your pumps are the lifeline for everybody working underground, you want to have backup. So we will. Sorry, yeah, the neighboring communities, New Samaro.
There you go. Yeah. Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay. Look, we've covered a lot on production here, and it sounds like production's going to keep growing more organically internally with this asset as you go underground. Let's talk a little bit on exploration too. What's some of the exploration that we're going to see out of the company either this year or into next year?
Sure. So if you look at the slide I've got up on the screen, you'll see the green outline. And what we were looking at in the previous slides in that cross section is contained in that green outlined area. And that's the main Kombat mining area. But we've been able to acquire really all of the ridge around Kombat, which gives us about 35 kilometers of potential strike length. All of those red stars you're looking at are at surface copper occurrences. So we have a lot of work to do. Really, exploration that you're seeing is so far is really just been between shaft number 1 and shaft number 3. We have about 10,000 meters of drilling planned still just within that green outlined area. Over the next few months and into next year, we're going to be expanding that program and starting to drill out the areas around in the area we call the Copper King extension, that yellow, the yellow area. And we have where we can see the potential for there being, satellite deposits or even lookalikes to Kombat in some of these areas along this ridge. Where we really, with the help of one of our directors, David Shaw, who's a structural geologist, and took a hard look at what we were working with here at Kombat. He's seen that this shear that we've been working on, and really has the intersection of the shear and the syncline, has been been the genesis of the Kombat deposit, that there's lookalikes for it along the trend. So we're going to be following that up over the next year, and we think we've got a real opportunity to grow the project even beyond the growth I've already outlined.
Now, how will this exploration be funded? Will it be through mining activities, or do you think you'll need to raise more money for that?
This we can do through mining activities. Like we should be producing cash flow as we get to as we get into the next few months, and with the underground development really paid for, we can use that additional cash flow for our exploration.
How deep do you think you're going to have to drill? A couple of questions have come in asking about results at depth. If grade's getting bigger or grade's getting higher, what can you tell us about how deep you're going to have to drill?
So currently, the drilling that we're doing is all for extensions of the open pit. When we get underground, we'll do more development drilling from underground. The deepest parts of the mine are about 750 meters deep. The best way to attack that is from underground, as opposed to drilling for those targets from surface. But we can learn from that as far as drilling on these other parts of the trend. So, to the rightmost part of the slide is an area that I'm particularly excited about. It's called Schlangenthal because that's my best Afrikaans. But in that area, we can see a lot of surface mineralization, but learning from what we know at Kombat, where the idea would be to test that at depth. As far as grade increase, yes, we do see some grade increase as we go down. And you can catch that even in our resource from the open pit at a % copper from Assis West, which is the central historic mining area. It's around 2.6% copper. And then when we get to the deeper portions at Assis Far West, we're looking at grades of around 3+ % copper. So generally, we do see an increase in grade at depth.
If you were to drill and find some more of this high grade, even closer to surface, could you change the mine plan? Could you move that earlier on into production?
Somewhat. So from underground, we definitely have a lot more flexibility as far as attacking areas that generate more profitability. But we'll move as fast as our pumps go. So when we are starting the underground, we'll start at about 250 meters depth. We'll continue to pump, and then as more faces become available at depth, then there's potential to mine from those. The biggest, I guess, potential for upside surprise would be Assis Far West. So right now we're forecasting that as a contribution in 2027. But when we are doing our work for the central sort of Assis West area, the main underground, we'll also dewater that Assis Far West area and build out the resource there. The work that was done there historically does suggest it's higher grade, and it can be operated from independently from the main mine. So there's a potential that we could bring really all of that production forward, and that's something we'll be working on in our next engineering studies.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for sending in all these questions. This has been very informative, even for me. Now, how about Silver Hill over in Morocco?
Sure.
We've alluded to it a couple of times. You even said Eric Sprott might even be more interested in this area. And tell us more about Silver Hill, what we can expect from here.
Sure. I'll touch on it quickly. So we did some drilling in Silver Hill. This is end of 2020, early 2021. We drilled in one area where we could see some surface disturbance. The interesting thing about Silver Hill, we call it Silver Hill because historically it was clear that's what they were mining. They were mining silver from here. But as we get into it, it's clearly a copper project, probably about 65% copper by value, but definitely a lot of silver. In the drill holes, we were consistently getting over 1% copper. So, we have a couple of holes here highlighted: 5 meters, 1.4, 33.6 grams per ton silver, all close to surface. 8 meters, 1.8, 121 grams per ton silver. And then we did a trench about that would kind of extend the whole strike length. You can see the trench mark there in yellow. And that trench was actually our best result. That was across the surface, 13 meters, 2.7% copper, 34.5 grams per ton silver. And then we got some cobalt, interestingly, with this. And what we're noticing is when we get really high grades, we do see cobalt mineralization throughout the deposit. Over the last year, with our resources kind of more focused on the restart at Kombat, we did some remote sensing work, and we did an IP survey at Silver Hill. There, we were looking for a connection between the areas where we drilled and where that trench was, and we found a lot more than that. So you can see in the magenta and pink colors the intense IP anomaly, chargeability anomaly, and what I think if you can pull up that whiteboard for me again.
Absolutely. One sec. There you go.
Oh, okay. Now I know how to do it. Okay. So the drilling was actually in this area, and you can see that's not our most intense anomaly, and that trench is around here.
If you could actually click that and draw something, that'll help us see then.
Okay. So there. So the trench is that first square, and then the rectangle is the area of our drilling, right? Hopefully you can see that. Those aren't the most intense anomalies on the survey. So this month we'll actually start drilling these stronger anomalies here. Like we're now looking where we're looking at 2.5 kilometers of strike length. We can now see an anomaly that's over 4 kilometers long, 1.5 kilometers wide, and the strongest portions of it are yet to be tested. So we're excited about getting some drilling done here. Right now, we'll start with just 2,000 meters, and that'll be just testing some of these strong anomalies. And then on success, we'll expand the program to really figure out what we've got here. But it looks like we're on the verge of a pretty substantial discovery.
Okay, now do you have maybe meterage that you can share with us in terms of what will be drilled or when the drilling will start here? Any other information in that sense?
Yeah, it'll just be 2,000 meters right now. So, and we'll start that drilling. We'll start that drilling towards the end of July.
Okay. Perfect. So this is just more of kind of the exploration play, right? Some blue sky here.
Absolutely.
Is this project owned 100%? Are there any work commitments that need to happen here?
No, this is 100%. No royalties, no carried interest.
Okay, perfect. Let's take a couple other random questions that have come in that I've more been saving up here. One saying, there any other companies close to the mill that could utilize some of that extra capacity in the near term?
So there are some other companies in the area, but like we have additional capacity on flotation on portions of the mill, but we are constrained on our grinding. So we can grind about 1,000 tons per day, 1,100 tons per day. So we're not looking at like toll milling type opportunities. We're using all our capacity.
Okay. Now, you pulled up this slide. This is a good one to quickly touch on here because, look, you're essentially showing that you guys aren't getting the credit market-wise for pounds of copper produced or even pounds of copper equivalent as a resource. Why do you think that is, and what's going to change that?
So we've got I think across the board, a lot of names have been beaten up in the market, but we got, I think, beaten up at a time when we were really just getting our stride. So we've got to get the name out there. I don't know how many of you who are listening now, this is your first interaction with Trigon, but I think we're definitely an underknown story, and I think just as far as being a producer, I think that's something that the market's only now just beginning to realize. And I'll point out now this is our per pound of copper production with a lot of growth ahead of us. You can see on that last table how our growth compares to the other companies listed. And then for the copper resource in the ground, we're trading at really almost like 1/5 of the value of our peers here, and this is on a resource where we have a lot of exploration upside ahead of us, both in at Kombat in Namibia, and then the potential that we've got at Silver Hill in Morocco. So yeah, we've got a lot of catching up to do.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, that covers a lot of the questions that were sent in here, Jed. I really appreciate you taking us through this story. And I think a key too is being the financing. There's a lot of people that asked about how you're going to finance everything. And sounds like we're all just waiting for a bit more news on this silver stream to satisfy that underground component. As I mentioned, if anybody has any follow-up questions after watching this webinar, and if you watch the replay, you can always email me, fleck@kereport.com. I will get those answered for you. And hey, Jet, I appreciate the update. Everybody, thank you very much for tuning in to this webinar. I'll have you back on my show when some more news breaks. But in the meantime, Jed, again, thank you very much for your time. And everybody, thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Corey.